Correct. Yeah. Right. Bro, the second question is
Okay,
what the
that's
key,
second question.
what the key, what the key challenges, yeah. So the policy reform, actually the reform is not done by the policy yet. We facing a problem, the institutional, cultural, and uh, institutional, uh, structural and cultural. But we still difficult on changing the behavior, changing culture. This what actually the institutional and structural is rather easier than cultural because some officer they want stay in line, yeah, they don't want to change. So the key factor is to uh, give them capacity building. Then they have open mind. This is the key factor. What we do know. However, at the moment, sometimes due to the UN employee rate, something like that, for police should add a number of police because we need a number of police. Then they compress the education. I mean the time frame. So we found this is not usual. So we now back to the I mean the time period of education become police. We yeah. If we extend the period, of course the budget will increase. Then Ibu apa namanya? Bu Susi ya.
This is relation to, I'm going to add a little bit that the
Yeah.
question is related to Perkap number 14, 2012 that you refer in for your
Yeah.
paper. Actually, the professionalism how we monitoring them, doing the executing the report that we made, and if there are not investigate all the evidence that we give to them. What's the punishment for them or whatever the police have to do something related to this? Yeah. Because we talk about the professionalism investigator that they have to do their job
Properly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is a Perkap, yeah. If you reported the police not perform on their duty, then they will investigate the police, then give a sanction, yeah, through uh, a process and internal, yeah, we have internal process. And if they did, if the police did a criminal, so they will bring the case to the court. Yeah. So we are no civilian. So many police can go to the court. Yeah, sure. So you reported a criminal case, yeah? Yeah, for the police. Yeah, you can.
I think my question is almost the same with what Ibu Lita asking. What happened with the case itself? We know that under this perkap, the investigator, the outcome of that investigator, we can bring into search another level. But what happened with the case itself? How we already give 100 evidence, and then they only take 2 of them, and they mislead the evidence into something that finally we call it SP3. And the question is now, if they are not investigating the evidence 90 evidence, the other 90 evidence, can we set the 90 evidence that they didn't touch even, as we call it as novum, and then we can bring them to another level or what?
There is a long debate, but police has a procedure, yeah, to judge the person guilty or not. I mean, so we need to prove with the evidence. Yeah. Then another question from about crime against the women and children. There is an interesting question here. So we, and the police said, so we have a division with taking care of the case of women and children. Yeah, division. So there is a special treatment. Because like probably you heard from the media at the moment that there is a big case in Jakarta International and in Sukabumi. So police need to be careful to handle this case and also include the other party like the Children Commission and also the psychiatry, psycholog, yeah, to solve it.
Basically, my question was that has the police reforms led to a higher conviction rate of offenders in these cases? Higher conviction rate.
Yeah, the police reform, yeah, get is a higher conviction rate other than so we, you said that the case is less registered, yeah, before less registered. So with this reform, so the open mind to report to the police. So we receive a higher. Yeah, actually the police is responsible for investigation. Then we give them to the attorney general. Yeah, then through the court. We after the reform we receive more case. Even we develop the Polmas, the community policing, that they can solve the case. Not bring to the court, but for the small case, not criminal case. But the relatively the conviction rate is increased, but I don't know the precisely the number.
I thank you for this session, and we have we have two more speakers. I think we have plenty of time to get into discussion. If there are questions, you can also address and meet the speakers after this session. We have two other distinguished speakers, which I think can also see how it's being practiced in other countries, how we want to address the Indonesian National Police reform, and we can reflect on their success stories and maybe also obstacles that they face, so that we can learn from them. I also wanted to talk more about how we are struggling. The Indonesian National Police is trying to improve its crime report and crime statistics. The Indonesian government has created a national strategy on anti-corruption, which is its annual action plan under the President Regulation number 55, 2012. which is actually a long-term, mid and long-term annual action plan on anti-corruption. And the police, the Indonesian police have also established, under that as a guidance and a framework, the Indonesian police is trying to improve its accountability and transparency. One of the indicators of that, the National Strategy on Anti-Corruption, is the Law Enforcement Index. How many cases filed? How many cases reported? How many cases investigated? How many cases prosecuted? And how many court convictions? So, but this is specific for corruption cases. Now, what the police is trying to keep up with that report. The second issue was important issue is actually any corruption cases investigated by the police and prosecutor office within 30 days. They have to report it to the Anti-Corruption Commission. They call it the Coordination and Supervision Function of the Anti-Corruption Commission. Now, what we are trying, what the public is trying to read, how many cases, what are the statistics of the case being reported to the Anti-Corruption Commission? And if the Anti-Corruption Commission has the mandate to monitor and supervise how the investigation is being carried out. Again, this is for corruption issues. The general crime investigated by the police, still yet to be improved. And I think this is the initiative at the moment, ongoing process. And I think under Brigadier General Nofal, he has a responsible, he has a huge task to achieve that. And I would like to give him an applause, and we get to the next section. Thank you. The second speaker is Mr. Gyo Soo Kim. I'd like to Mr. Gyo Soo Kim is the founding secretary of the Transparency International in Korea, established in 1999. He was elected as the member of Transparency International. He's also he's earned his PhD from the graduate school of Yonsei University in Korea. His role in democracy and the Korean history and the struggle for democracy and human rights is he was imprisoned twice in the 70s. He was also appointed as a member of the Police Renovation Committee by the Korean National Police Agency in 2012. He's again the chairman for the Civil Inspection of the Committee for the National Police Agency appointed last year. Maybe this is something that Indonesia needs. Dr. Kim was also the commissioner. He was a commissioner for the Korea Independent Commission Against Corruption from 2005 to 2008. We've also heard the legacy of KICAC, or Korean Independent Commission Against Corruption, that Indonesia has also learned. We've done exchanges. We did study visit to Korea, to South Korea. We learned how the Korean Independent Anti-Corruption Commission functions and stuff. We also look at the strategy of the Korean Independent Commission on Anti-Corruption. Kim was conferred War Medal of Civil Merit by his government in 2006. I have the honor to present.
Terima kasih. It's my great honor and pleasure to be here to share my experiences and lessons. And I'd like to say big thanks for the host country and session coordinator, HIPAA Foundation, and thank you.
refuse what?
As you know, as you may know, there was a big accident of ferry sailor. This time, this yellow ribbon means solidarity and our prayer for the victims and missing passengers of the ferry. And for me, some kind of cooperation with the police, it was very strange because when I was a student, as Monica explained, I was imprisoned twice, and in 1980, after May 18 movement in Gwangju, I was severely tortured 22 days in the police office, and I hated those police officers. And when I began my work with Transparency International, I have heard about the news from US libraries. They prepare the most stolen book list, and in Salt Lake City and other area, copies of the Bible was on the top of the list. And in Fremont, it was exam preparation books to become a police officer. This, for me, information in police, I cannot think about it. And as you, Monica introduced, in 2012, I was invited by the Korean National Police Agency to become a police innovation committee member. And after that, I was elected to be forced to be a chairman of Citizen Inspection Committee. And last year, TI Korea conducted risk mapping study for National Police Agency, especially about police corruption risk. Thus, I'd like to share those stories together with you.
Pulling in your microphone.
In 2012, there was a big cases of bribery. There was a big crisis in the national police. In spite of big changes from 1998, that there were some problems, corruption and corruption, corruption, nepotism. And one so-called room salon was in the biggest one was in the Gangnam area. You know Gangnam style. That area is very well known for food and drinking, and some prostitution were done in those room salons. Thus, the owner of that room salon gave distributed bribes for mostly for officers around the region. That was a very big case, and there were some other problems of security or safety because the rules work of police. Some women were murdered, and thus there was very strong people's pressure against the incapacity of the police and the corruption of the police. And Commissioner General organized a special committee with strong political will. You can find my photo there, and in the center, he is the head of police. And he invited 17 experts in anti-corruption and security area, and we organized the civil participation in police innovation meeting. And after the job of the PRC, we gave recommendations to the police. And it includes online publicity of information on corruption in the police, and integrated assessment of high-level police officers, risk mapping and management of corruption in the police, more female officers in corruption-prone area, and strengthening of whistleblower protection and encouragement of whistleblower, extending prohibition of personal contacts with job-related people, improvement of investigation procedure in big amount-related cases, promoting transparency in police equipment procurement because it is very closed area, mandatory curricula on corruption prevention for police officers, limitation of stay in corruption-prone area offices, and multiple control system on food and entertainment businesses like room salon. And National Police Agency invited some experts for citizen inspection committee. And from the inside, no more excessive investigation by the police officers, because from the outside, no more paternalism. Yeah, you are very weak for those police officers themselves. That's, civil participation in police investigation was one of the solutions. And KNPA and local police authorities organized the CIC and treatment and follow-up works on serious fraud cases done by the victim. And we handled some whistleblowing cases and others. And he was the head of National Police Service. And activities. Central CIC met 9 times, regular sessions, and one special session. And there were other local CICs. Evaluation of CIC activities. Achievements. 1. Strengthening of people's trust in the police. Better communication with civil society, and promotion of inner movement toward integrity. However, we had some limitations, like civil participation in appearance, especially in some regions. Political participation was poor in those regions, and weakened political will after the crisis period. The head was removed and changed, and then new head no strong political will. And as the request of National Police Agency, Korea conducted police corruption risk mapping in last year, and it was recommended by myself at first, but they approached it to some consulting companies. However, the amount was not sufficient because they rejected, mostly those companies rejected to do the job for National Police Agency. Thus, TI Korea did. And as you may know, TI UK prepared some typologies, and it was on the website of TI UK's Defense Security Program on police corruption typology. There are some areas, 5 areas, with red colors: political corruption, finance area, personnel area, procurement area, and behavior and operations. Those 5 areas were picked, and TI UK prepared some risks as typology. And, however, it was not. It was hardly be used in Korean case. Different structure and different climate. Thus, TI Korea prepared another model. We call it as type. First, we developed tool, and secondly, we conducted surveys. And here, some cases of some fraud or corruption cases inside the police were used for developing the development of the tool. And survey, we conducted the survey via SurveyMo, and we had a workshop with some stakeholders. In the survey, some police officers and some stakeholders participating in the survey. And the workshop for adjustment, the survey result was open to all participants and experts and some consultants and police officers, high-level middle and high-level police officers sat together to discuss what are the real problems and what can be done to mitigate or control those problems. And we finally categorized those areas into 4 areas, 4 levels: critical, high, medium, and low. And TI Korea provided some tools to prevent, mitigate, and control those symptoms. Likelihood of those threats and impact, size of impact from the low to high. Thus, we prepared lists. And then, unfortunately, it was not allowed to open the results. That Korean National Police Agency did not allow me to open those contents. However, we found some risks in leading safety area, investigation area, and traffic area. Those areas. And some risks in outer office and inner office also. So this. And TI Korea recommended the followings. For inner system and policy, we recommended those things. 1, self-check based based on the list of corruption risks. Number 2, fine-tuned anti-corruption plans between real cases. Without any real cases, it will be very empty and bold. Thus, we ask that. And number 3, independent outer corruption report center. Not inside the police itself, but outside. Some NGOs can do that work for the police. and 360-degree feedback assessment, longer-term plan for police integration, and more transparency and civil participation. More transparency we requested, but still they hesitate. Because if we, for example, if we open the contents of police corruption lists in the Korean police, then it will harm the reputation. It will make a reputation misleading to them. That's why they are mistaking to have more transparency. Anyway, and for legal system and policy recommendations, we gave those recommendations. Independent and sustainable participation structure for the police. And that's we gave the recommendation to form by the law police integrity commission. I don't know if it's in Australia or New Zealand. I don't know. They have that kind of commission, and that will be very helpful. Through that, we can have sustainable and very effective participation structure we can give. And number two, exclusion of officers with corruption or fraud reports. So we have still that policy, however, it is very weak in our mind. Thus, we recommended that stronger restriction is needed. Number three, proper financial and human resource allocation for policy integrity and civil participation. That they prepare something, but it is not sufficient in local level, especially. In some provinces, they don't have any budget and they don't have any personnel to support those activities. Lessons learned. Civil, number one, civil participation can make a difference. Civil participation with specialty, devotion, and integrity can make a difference. And building, it can build citizens' trust in policy. And it can give some fresh view of the outsiders. And number two, more transparency is needed in security sector. National defense area or police or security area, we need more transparency. Not about the case, but operation and performance, we need more transparency. Especially public procurement of police equipment is very closed market. Thus, they can manipulate the price. We can compare with other countries, Korean police, Indonesian police, or Japan police. We can compare the prices. And freedom of information in the police is essential. However, at this moment, we have very limited freedom. And mapping is needed to prevent risk mapping, especially. Risk mapping is needed to prevent, mitigate, and control those corruption police. And thus, I'd like to suggest corruption risk mapping together in OGP countries. The region, for example, we can make corruption risk mapping in the same period, and we can visit neighbor countries to do that job, and we can learn from them, and we can give some recommendations to them, and we can open the results together. There are different forms of problems in Korean National Police Agency. For example, we can find something. For example, there are some problems of improper sexual relationship with accuser, victim, or even witnesses. That can be found. as an example, or some money can be borrowed from those related people to the police officer. Yeah, if we can find those problems, we can handle, we can control those things. That's why I'm suggesting corruption is mapping together with OGP. And number 4, independent and sustainable structure for civil participation is implemented, as I. And it takes two to wrestle, or to, in Korean words, one cannot clap with one hand. Two parts should work together. For example, without political will or without people's pressure, it will be very weak. Thus, we need both sides, strong political will and strong people's pressure. Then, and in some cases, we can find a system without mind or philosophy. In that case, that kind of participation will become kind of participation in appearance, not in reality. Thus, I think philosophy, not only the system, but also the philosophy or the mind.
Wow, I wish that we can do it immediately in our country. I hope Nova can take a lot of this and bring it home to the police headquarters and also to our parliament. I like to. It's been very comprehensive how Dr. Kim has presented the change in Korea. The fact that it started 2 or 3 years ago, and it's recent, and I think it's very much relevant for Asia Pacific countries. That means we can do it. In other countries also, we can do it. It's just the political will and people pressure. People pressure can only be built through, public participation can only be built through open government initiatives. I'd like to invite the floor for a discussion and comments. And you mentioned, please state your name. And then, please state your name.
Okay.
Please state your name first. I'd like Mr. Rahman to.
It's very interesting about their presentation. I think it's very inspiring for improvement in policy. I want to know how you push the change of paternal culture for specifically, and how can you push the equal treatment between the senior officer and the low rank officer regarding to the law enforcement. Sometimes the senior officer get some very protective action from their institution if they get some maybe out some cases or maybe bribery. But in the low rank, it's easy to the institution send him to the criminal court. I think it's a simple question, but I need the details in your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, terima kasih Pak. I don't have the questions, but I do have two comments. One to Professor Kim and one to Pak General Nafru. Talking about the right that was mentioned by Professor Kim, I think sometimes people confuse about pride and guilt. It's very hard sometimes to people in our police to identify between pride and grief. In our culture, sometimes expressions of gratitude. Sometimes we receive this type of things, but then sometimes people look at this as a gift, and of course it's a pride and this corruptions. And I think the process in South Korea is totally different with this, 20 years ago. And something is very useful for a new country like Timor-Leste. And I take a lot of, your presentations. Thank you. And before that, I would like to express our deeply condolences to the missions of very Saul. It's very sad to hear this news. To General, sangat merasa gembira karena saya lihat perkembangan politik di dalam Indonesia, di mana membuat sebuah rumah gampang sekali, tapi untuk merenovasi sebuah rumah agak sulit. Tapi Anda bisa melakukan itu, Pak. Saya melihat perkembangan politik di Indonesia sangat luar biasa, terutama di politik. Saya ada 4 poin yang tadi Bapak presentasikan, militaristik, human. Itu sesuatu yang luar biasa, Pak. Saya merasa bahwa itu sama dengan itu. Terima kasih.
Thank you. First, I would like to express my gratitude, and I'm really pleased at your presentation, which has been building our mind of the police should change. I'm from Indonesian National Police, and we have the very similar structure, which is national police. But Indonesia has a very huge number of police officers, and we are now the biggest organization in our country, which is still in a national wide. According to your presentation, we really inspired to have such kind of software or application and this kind. But I'd like to be more backward to see your historical background. I'd like to ask you about what parties actually initiate the reform of police corruption, whether it is more internal or external. And according to that, if it is from external, it should be there must be a resistance, as we know that the resistance could come from a higher rank or lower rank. And in Indonesia, we face the biggest challenges in the shifting the paradigm of the higher rank officer. And we would like to learn from you what measure or what strategy that you did to overcome this kind of resistance which comes from the higher or the highest rank officer in your organization. Thank you very much.
I'll take one more question, sir.
Thank you. Juan Botero from the World Justice Project in Washington, D.C. The question is, first, thank you for your presentation, it's very clear. But if you could explain a little more on what motivated the police to actually engage with you? It's similar to what my colleague was asking. What led them to engage? And the second aspect of it is, if this engagement was face-saving or really deep. You understand? Go ahead. Thank you.
Firstly, thank you all for your valuable questions. And, the first question from here, the name is in the upper level, for upper level police officers like police superintendent or or a higher level, central CIC controlled those cases. Not only corruption, but also some fraud and irregularities, sexual harassment, something. Thus, it was fair in my mind. The members of CIC in central level were some former judges and two NGO activists, including myself, and professor and former police chief. Thus, they had very good social reputation, and it was because why those members were chosen by the head of Korean National Police Agency. And for the lower level officers, we thought the local CICs can do something to control the problems of lower level officers, but it was very slow in my opinion, and I think we have to strengthen those CIC activities. And for the second thing from Moreste, we don't have any. We also don't have any clear line between bribe and gift. It is a matter of ethics, public ethics. Thus, for us, it was for the corruption risk mapping for the police. In the beginning, we discussed that matter. What can be defined as corruption? Can we exclude some valuable gifts? Can we exclude those improper sexual relationship with related people? And those things were discussed in the previous first stage, and we included both. And we requested to the police to train those officers regularly. The guideline will be different time from time to time, from region to region or from country to country. Thus, we have to train those officers regularly, and the guideline will be changed. In for Korean public officers, $30 are the limit of some food offering from the related people. But for American reporters, for example, I know it was $7. It is different, perception of the people. Thus, we have to make draw a line time to time, and according to that guideline, we have to train those officers. And for the third and fourth question, what was the motivation of those changes, or was those recommendations were adopted or not? I can say external pressure from the people was the most important ground or reason why they invited civilian people for investigation or giving recommendation job work position. And internally, they had very strong, very dangerous reputation risk at the time in 2012. Thus, they had to do something. And fortunately, they invited civilian for those posts. That was successful in some parts, but it was not fully accepted because inner level and some related people are very hesitant to accept those recommendations, as you may think about. And still, we have problems, and we are giving strong pressure to do to comply with those recommendations. That's my general answers.
I'd like to give an applause to Kim, Dr. Kim. I can say more than what the Korean National Police is going through now, and I hope what he presented can inspire us what to do when we go back to our countries, and also inspire the public, civil society, that we can also improve policing, professional policing, to provide a safer community. I know that some questions are being asked, and I'm time bound here. We are running out of time, and I'm thinking of us giving at the end of the session, the third session, we can also have a discussion again after Mr. Wajahat present his interesting his part. I'm glad that we only have 3 speakers instead of 6. And this is actually something for us so that we can have more time for discussion. Back to our presenter, I invite the honor to invite Mr. Wajahat Habibullah, former commissioner, information commissioner, and also he has been a public civil servant and retired civil servant, and elected as a public information commissioner, and he initiated rights to information. I know that Aruna Roy, also his colleague, is also here, and we had an interesting discussion last night, and I think he's one of the right person to present in this forum, and I hope we can also learn from his experience. I invite Mr. Wajahat. Thank you.
Friends, it's a privilege for me to be here to talk to you about a subject which is of pressing importance in my own country, and that is transparent and accountable policing for a safer community. I think that this matter has been discussed in the last London session of the OPG. The subject for discussion was police and public security. I'm glad you defined this as safer community, because for public security, I would like us to conclude that we mean a safer community. Very often, public security is confused with the security of the state, security of government. Yes, those are important. But I think overridingly, and particularly in a democratic polity, the safety of the community comes first. And therefore, it is necessary therefore to develop a system whereby the police, which is the enforcer of that security, is actually accountable to those to whom it is supposed to be provided that security. Now, police reforms have been discussed in some detail. The Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, of which I chair now in India, has been engaged considerably in talking about police reforms. If I may read out from a session which they had in the state of Karnataka in India, in which all the elders, citizens, senior citizens of the state of the country who were gathered there made this appeal. All political parties immediately agreed that police reform and independent policing be treated as a bipartisan issue about the compulsion of competitive politics. All political parties in power at the center and the states take immediate and effective action towards demonstrable police reform. All national political parties in advance of the next national election declare in their manifestos the practical steps they commit to take on police reforms during their first 100 days of office. Now, this, as you can see, was an appeal to the political leadership for commitment to police reform. And all the political leadership, the entire political leadership in India, has already spoken in favor of police reform. I don't think you found anybody talking in terms of no police reform. Why is this so necessary in India? Because in India we have inherited a police structure which was actually designed to perpetrate an imperial state, an empire, by the British. And the first police laws were in the 19th century, 1860s, which have been reformed from time to time but not replaced, not supplanted. And therefore, unfortunately, in our country, and I suspect in other post-colonial countries that we have represented, Bangladesh, too, the police is often used by the political leadership to perpetrate the leadership's authority rather than in ensuring safety and accountability and the safety of the community itself. So I today will concentrate on the subject which we are discussing: transparent and accountable policing for safer community, based on my own experience with our right to information law. Our right to information law, and I noticed that Mr. Kim has spoken about his own efforts to strengthen the kind of Freedom of Information Act. India now has a law which has been rated as one of the most powerful in the world on the right to information. Whether it is delivering as effectively as intended is another matter, but that is something that we can certainly discuss. But it is a powerful law and applies to the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. So there is no element of governance which is exempt from this law. And I will talk to you today about how this law has affected transparent and accountable police, what it demands of that, and how far it's truly been effective. Yes. Yes. The interesting thing about the Indian law in the Indian structure is that the police are under the police come under the authority of the state government. There are two forms of police. We have paramilitary forces, we have the police. The police, which is responsible for maintaining general law and order, is under the authority of the state government. There are also paramilitary forces, which are also police, but which fall under the authority of the central government. These are deployed when there is a breakdown of law and order, or some urgent threat to law and order. They are also used to police borders and sensitive areas like the airport and so on, but they're not responsible for day-to-day policing. So what transparency is required, accountability is required is in both areas, and how are they affected by this law? There are 28 states and 7 union territories which each have separate police departments. And the central government funds police modernization programs in a big way. The role of the central government in bringing about state reform of the police is limited. But the access to information is, as I said, what my trust area is going to be. And in India is implementing the right to information, in its right to information law of 2005, as I mentioned, which is one of the most powerful in the world. And as I mentioned, the police departments are covered by it. But the police intelligence wings, these are one of the paramilitary forces. They fall under Schedule 2 of this Act, which means that they are security and intelligence agencies and therefore not covered by the law. But you'll be interested to learn that there's a proviso to that clause in the Right to Information Act, and matters that concern corruption, which is a subject of discussion this morning, and human rights violation, they are overridden. If it can be established, paramilitary forces or any organization is guilty of corruption or human rights violation, then that organization becomes responsible for that particular issue for providing the information it is sought. And information concerning life and liberty of a person is in any case necessary within 48 hours, and this includes then naturally a person who is wrongfully arrested, because that would be a question of his life or liberty. In this, it's interesting because the interpretation that I gave to human rights violation also in the case of gender discrimination. As you probably know, there are a large number of women in our paramilitary forces, and there was a complaint by a woman that she had been posted in hardship areas, far from her husband, her family, in order to discriminate, in order to persecute the woman. We held this was a case of gender discrimination, although the department tried to plead to know that is not the case, and the department had to provide the information necessary. So therefore, these clauses bring all the entire section of police under the right to information law, whether paramilitary or regular, in the case of corruption. Now, the only areas where information may be denied are described here, where disclosure will impede investigation. That means the details of a particular case are necessarily in the public domain. So a person who has conducted a criminal investigation cannot, after the investigation is complete, seek to deny the details of that investigation if information is asked. Yes, he or she can plead while the investigation is ongoing. The information will not be provided because it will impede the process of investigation. But in that, he or she will have to convince the authority, which will ultimately be the Central Information Commission, which I headed, that in fact it would slow impede, and that it would endanger the life and safety of an individual or reveal intelligence source. That means if somebody gives some secret, whistleblower, so on, gives some secret information to government, and then that person's name is exposed, that could lead to they shall become a take from jail. That will impede again the process of imposition of enforcement of the law. And disclosure is likely to cause incitement of an offence. And you would know that if there has been some religious incitement or so on, and then this has been sought to be suppressed to say that no, you want it to be disclosed, that need not necessarily be disclosed. Yes? Go on. You see, proactive disclosure. Now, what is proactive disclosure? Under Section 4 of the law, each ministry, each department, each organ of government, that is all organs of the state, are required to proactively disclose all these items. These are especially in reference to the police. Proactively disclose means how? Either by publication on their websites, or through the publication of books. And it's the easiest is, of course, the website, but also in making their files accessible to a client who proposes for that file under the law. And this means all laws, rules, regulations, norms, standard operating procedures, and SOPs and decision-making process of the police budgets and reports of expenditure, and the police must wear their name and designation badges while effecting arrests. Details of arrested persons such as name, address, alleged offences, and name and designation of police officers affecting the arrest. Now, none of this is so far in the public domain. What is necessary here now is not therefore that you should change the police for that purpose, but the public should be aware of this. Unfortunately, the public is not aware of this. They often do not know who came to arrest them, why were they arrested. The families are running around to find out where did the person go who was arrested. All this information is in fact supposed to be in the public domain. And therefore, under the law, a police department is expected to put up and publicly announce if such things are done, of course, subject to the overriding clause, which I had mentioned earlier. If it is in any way going to compromise security, then it will not be given. And as I mentioned earlier, police investigation reports are public documents about presentation in a court. You will understand that first information report which you've been referred to, the report of a crime committed, an individual, like the person who you have mentioned in Archie. This is a public document. In our own country, the police have been keeping it a secret document. It is virtually under the discretion of the police whether they register a case or not. They can't do that now under this law. They have to register a case, and anybody asking for the information on that registration is entitled to be given that unless it impedes any of those restrictions which I mentioned to you earlier. What does this mean? This means that we often have got cases of people who felt that cases had been registered against them, but they had not been told, they did not know, or that cases were registered against people who were close to them for illegal reasons, but they were not disclosed that they had such a case registered against them, so they could afterwards be prosecuted for the same. Now this has to be, and this will be upheld by the courts, the decision of the Information Commission. This has to be disclosed. This is a public document. It is not only to be disclosed to the accused, it is expected to be disclosed to the public in case of it is asked. You see, now I mentioned to you at the bottom what in actual practice is happening. The detailed itemized budgets and expenditure are not publicly disclosed. The SOPs, that is, standard operating procedures, are often disclosed only upon formal request. Now, it's entirely wrong. You need an operating, the public must know the operating procedure. You don't come to a case like the case in Archie that has been mentioned, whereby the public doesn't know what is the operating procedure. You have to come to a meeting like this, you know, whether the Islamic law or Sharia law will apply, or whether the normal law will apply. And the Brigadier General has to clarify that no, the normal law will apply. This is supposed to be automatically known. So as the Chairman of the National Commission of Minorities, I put up all the SOPs of the police department on the website of the National Commission of Minorities. You can access it if you so wish, and you will get the information as to what is the standard procedure, so that you can then, while using the police for giving you a safer existence, use exactly those procedures which are prescribed. You see, another important matter, many states have not created public databases of arrested persons. There are only two states, Kerala and West Bengal, both states which have had long spells of communist rule, which have been compliant with this requirement. So people very often did not know as to, as I said, what a person has been arrested for and where has the person been arrested and kept. As a consequence of this having become open, people under the Right to Information law have now been able to come up with information on how many under trial prisoners we have in our country and how long they have remained under trial. Very often, they've discovered cases, unfortunately, then it's had a good effect. Persons under trial for criminal offences, for which, even if they've been found guilty, the term in prison would not be more than 5 years, having actually spent 15 years in prison. Because their names had sort of disappeared from the horizon, the families had given up. And for that reason, the police is amongst the top 5 departments receiving the most number of RT applications. This comes after the finance ministry, which of course deals with income tax and other taxes and so on, but this is among the top 5. So of course I'd be very happy to answer questions on this in the discussion that is there. I hope I have taken up too much of your time, Monica, but we had mentioned you were running this time.
Thank you, Mr. Jahan. I was just being asked by somebody that the two presenters, Kim and Wajahan, has given us. One is the external factors for change. The other giving us how to do it and where to start. I mean, for internal organization. I actually have the experience, which is one of the shared experience, that when the Indonesian National Police enacted the internal chief of police guidelines on human rights, it is not the police that says is using it. It's actually the public, the civil society, and the NGOs and the legal aid who said, look, Mr. Police, Pak Polisi, this is your organization, institutional guidelines on human rights. Then the police says, oh, I've never seen it. So this is a story that I appreciate, that the Indonesian National Police also developed and disseminated the Indonesian National Police, the implementing guidelines on protection of human rights. I invite the floor for further discussion with Mr. Wajahan. Please know that there's a time limit for us. I'd like to know from the organizing committee, what's the time limit for us? 2? What's the time limit for us?
10 minutes more.
10 minutes more, okay. Susie, question? Ibu Susi, and then please kindly place your name, mention your name. And?
Japan.
Sir?
Japan.
Sir? And then sir? Sekar. And Pak Agung. Okay, that's 4. 10 minutes for questions and for answers. Thank
you. My question is related to this public database of arrested people. I'm just sitting here wondering if it's not violating this innocence until the court proves that the person is guilty. How can you have this public database of this? Is there anything violating human rights? Is it clear?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Yeah.
I think the question is, how did the public database of arrested people work, given that if they weren't actually convicted yet, given that there are some basic privacy protections for those in the justice system?
Should I respond or should I wait for the own question?
Yeah. Just a quick question actually to maybe all panelists, particularly also other. As I was listening, it seemed to me that the dilemma is reforming what? Which reform is more important? Is it police reform or is political reform? And can police reform be isolated from political reform? One point made by Professor Azhar is that in a police law enforcement agencies, many of our countries, tend to be used for promoting partisan political agenda. And that has been increasingly becoming systematic and institutionalized. As a result of which, police in many cases, we tend to ignore that they cannot use or apply their professional capacities, skills, or the professionalism or whatever, even if they wanted. We all talk about the constraints in terms of low salaries and benefits and so on, but they are part of the whole system. And if civil bureaucracy can function, why not police bureaucracy? But the point is, it seems to me that we often reach the point that police reform cannot operate or cannot be successful in isolation. And it all depends, in my understanding, quite a lot on the perspective politically. They have to understand how do you address that issue in terms of being able to introduce genuine political reform so that not only police and other law enforcement agencies but also other institutions of accountability can be viewed to be functioning effectively.
One more question, Ibu Susi, and Pak Agung. Two more questions. I will also request later on the three distinguished speakers to have a final remarks at the closing session.
Thank you, Mr. Nabi, for your presentation. I appreciate your notes about the police investigations reports or topic documents upon presentation in a court. Means that after the court session is elapsed, then everybody can see actually what the report is. Is that already been implemented or still something that we're working on it? Because I think Indonesia needs that to show the transparency that we are working on now. Thank you.
Thank you. Just, I think, also a question that leads to the final remark. I've seen from the example of Indonesian National Police, there are two important pillars for reform. One is on public participation, and the second is transparency. In the context of public participation, I would see has been making great progress, as has been discussed with community policing and all. But the question is, and also that relates to how the South Korean story of engaging external driver for came, that is on the issue of transparency. And to what extent does the existence of, so to speak, competing agency would help to have a reform in the police itself? Take the example of Indonesia, the existence of the anti-corruption commission, which conducts actually a lot of tasks that has also in the hand of the police, but then it gains a lot of recognition from the public, and it also drives improvement, betterment in the national police itself. Yeah. So how do you see that? Is that a good recipe, or in the long run it might create an issue with regard to reforming police in the side of transparency, both from Korean perspective and to some extent Indian perspective?
Yes, well, I attempt to answer all these as quickly as possible. The first question on the public database of arrested persons and how that will impinge on privacy. The question of when one is arrested, then there is no question of privacy. The arrested person, unless it's a husband by his wife or a wife by a husband, can't really be described as a private act. These are public actions. They're taken by public authority against individual citizens of the country. Therefore, this information has to be made public and must be known to the citizens of the country. They must be known how many people, it must be known how many people have been arrested. They may or may not know, subject to that disclosure exemption as to why they were arrested. But the fact that people are under arrest country needs to know. And we have the National Crime Records Bureau, which gives, in our country, we have a National Crime Records Bureau, which gives a complete database on all the crimes committed and all the number of people who have been arrested. But unfortunately, that data was not in the public domain. Now it is in the public domain. And therefore, it is possible to tell as to how far this is actually being implemented.
Does it list the individuals by names, not just the aggregate numbers, but by names?
Yes, the names are there, but as I mentioned over there, the details are not there in every state yet. The details are only out in 2 states. They are expected under the law to be out because it's a name which is important. It's not the number of persons that have been arrested. The second question, which was Iftihar's question, what comes first, police reform or political reform? Now, an institutional framework like the Right to Information Law becomes the instrumentality. I mean, the Right to Information Law of India is not an end in itself. It is only a means to an end. It is a means of getting the public mobilized into enforcing what it wants to enforce or demanding what it needs to demand. Both the political, in our country, I think, and most of us will have no hesitation in denying that in our country, in all our countries, political reform is necessary, and police reform is also necessary. But in our countries, which we have in common in all of South Asia, and formerly of the British Empire, we have inherited a police structure, which, although we have made changes and modifications in it after that so many times, continues to be based on that old structure of something to enforce government's authority, not an institution to ensure a safer community. And that is what I was wanting to make, because the 2 things don't necessarily go together. But unless you have one, you will not be able to have the other. And both will have to probably require it. My other co-panelists may have another explanation with regard to that, but that was I had felt. Yes, your question that is it already under implementation? Yes, but not to the extent that it should be. And therefore, very often, the police keep on coming into trouble with the Information Commission for not having done so. But it is now the law, it has to be done. Finally, and this of course the others may have some other elucidation on the point, the public participation and transparency. Again, if I may reiterate the point I made earlier, the Right to Information Law in India is only an instrument to promote public participation in government. It does not mean that it is actually working in that manner. It can be used in that manner. Therefore, the public needs to be educated. The public can now not say that, but I didn't know. If they want to know, they can do. And how will I to ask? I didn't know about it. The government also can't say I didn't know. In the case of the government, of course, government earlier was a sort of cocoon in which all this information was kept stored. The public did not necessarily know. Now the public must know, the government must know, and therefore you have the dynamics of democracy working. People must use the law to the extent that they need it or want to use it, and then they cannot tomorrow say, well, I've got the law, I've got the instrumentality, but we didn't use it. So that is my reading of your question. Thank you very much.
I'd like to give my answer to the last question first. In my opinion, the presence of anti-corruption authority like KPK is very important to reform police or other agencies. In Korean case, we have ACRC instead Kichak. We have weaker authority, but anyway, we have annual public institution integrity index. Yeah, and we divide it into two areas. One, regulation. Uh, for regulation areas, the police, national police, and the prosecutors are but every year, a prosecutor or police. Yeah, and they are fighting each other, and they are blaming each other. I think it's good because that kind of uh, check and balance in those law enforcement agencies is essential. If we don't have any that kind of uh, conflict between two organizations, then we will have very weak law enforcement agency and handled by several few strong and thus I think the presence of anti-corruption agency is important. At the same time, I have to mention the pressure from the people. And for the question of Iftekar about what's the first, the police reform or political reform? Yes, I would like to give my last comment as your as my answer for your question. Yeah, holistic approach and coalition building is essential. There is no panacea, one size fits all. Yeah, if we talk about police, we cannot forget about prosecutors or judiciary, and at the same time, media. And if they don't work, police reform cannot be achieved. At the same time, if there is no reformation in those areas, political reform will be very void. Thus, then the two sides are closely linked with each other. Yeah. Without political reform or strong pressure from the people, the police reform cannot be achieved. At the same time, without each department or institutions reform, then political reform cannot be yeah, uh, yeah, achieved. And thus, as my last comment, we approach we have, and at the same time we have to work together with other stakeholders. That's coalition building. Thank you.
Thank you.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Thank you. Actually, we need to learn from South Korea and India. Actually, the KPK is has encouraged police here to do the same, but you cannot compare with the commission body with the police because the duty is different. The police is very huge, and however, we try to uh, to follow the government and political rule that we will starting transparent. That's why we develop the staff arts media, to give the access to the public in monitoring the case. That's what we do. Then we still developing the system, to have a public access. However, we still have another challenge that we are in the criminal justice system, so we cannot do like KPK because we have a prosecutor, then and also the judiciary. So, like not every case can just go through. When we say submission case, sometimes we find a difficulty to get into so like perkara, bolak-balik perkara. I think this is from me. Thank you.
I would like to have a concluding remark from the speakers, each of 1 minute.
Well, thank you, Monica. I think that generally it's been a useful discussion. It also, by the manner of your invitation, your speakers fills in various gaps, the need for police reforms, the actual participation of public activists, how it can help in bringing about greater transparency, and then finally the need for a law on transparency, which will all bring this whole thing together in what can be the agenda as earlier discussed post 2015 for the GP. Thank you.
Thank you all for the three distinguished speakers. We give them an applause. I've seen this. I would like to say thank you to the OGP, the organizing committee, TIFA Foundation. I myself also, as UNOPC, we have published the Police Accountability Handbook on police integrity and independent oversight, and it's also available in the UNOPC website. A little bit normative, but this session is more practical on how to implement it. I thank you again for moderating this. Thank you all for coming and attending this. Thank you.
That's